Israel just informed Trump to disregard Iran's nuclear initiative. The genuine danger is something far more immediate and impossible to halt. Iranian ballistic missiles, specifically the Khaybar-Shikan, a medium-range solid-fuel missile that can obliterate Israeli cities in 8 to 10 minutes from underground launch locations that Israel cannot identify until it's too late. And according to Israeli intelligence evaluations shared with the Trump administration this week, Iran now controls approximately 2,000 ballistic missiles ready to launch. That's roughly the same arsenal magnitude Iran had before the June 2025 12-day war, meaning Iran has completely restored its missile capabilities despite Israeli strikes that supposedly eliminated 35 to 45% of their stockpile. Worse, Iran is now manufacturing 300 new ballistic missiles per month, according to Israeli calculations. 300. Every 30 days, Iran adds an arsenal bigger than many countries control in total. At this manufacturing rate, Israel believes Iran could field 10,000 ballistic missiles within the next few years, and there is no defense arrangement in the world that can halt that many incoming missiles. Israeli Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi briefed American military commanders on this frightening reality during high-level conferences in Washington this week. His communication was blunt. Israel's missile defenses, Arrow 2, Arrow 3, David Sling, Iron Dome, can intercept most dangers in small salvos, but they cannot accomplish 100% success rates. And when Iran launches hundreds of missiles simultaneously, some will penetrate, and it only takes one Khaybar-Shikan missile carrying a 1,500-kilo warhead striking Tel Aviv or Jerusalem to inflict catastrophic casualties. One missile breaching Israel's layered defenses could eliminate hundreds or thousands of civilians, eliminate critical infrastructure, and activate political upheaval that threatens the government's continuation. The Khaybar-Shikan is particularly frightening because it employs solid fuel, removing the lengthy pre-launch fueling procedure that liquid fuel missiles demand. Solid fuel missiles can be launched within minutes of obtaining launch directives, and because they're road mobile and can be launched from commercial vehicles, identifying and eliminating them before launch is nearly impossible. Israeli intelligence validated that Iran has positioned Khaybar-Shikan missiles to underground installations and dispersed launchers throughout the country. Iran can launch these missiles from positions Israel doesn't even understand exist. By the time Israeli satellites identify a launch, the missile is already in flight, traveling at hypersonic speeds that provide Israel's defenses only minutes to react. Tal Inbar, senior research fellow at the Missile Defense Advocacy Alliance, clarified the impossible mathematics confronting Israel's air defenses. While Arrow and THAAD, the U.S. supplied arrangements positioned in Israel, still don't supply airtight security against ballistic salvos, however advanced they are. They intercept most incoming dangers, but you cannot accomplish a 100% success rate. That's the key expression, cannot accomplish 100%. When Iran launches 200 missiles at once, as they did during the June war, Israel's defenses intercept 95%, maybe 98% on a perfect day with American THAAD batteries assisting. But that still means 4 to 10 missiles penetrate, and each one that penetrates could eliminate a military installation, eliminate dozens of soldiers, crater runways, or obliterate apartment structures. During the 12-day war in June, Iran launched over 500 ballistic missiles at Israel between June 13th and June 21st. The first 2 days saw massive barrages exceeding 100 missiles each. Israel's air defenses, supported by American destroyers launching SM-3 interceptors and U.S. Army THAAD batteries, intercepted the vast majority, but not all. Several missiles struck Nevatim air installation. Others hit Tel Nof air installation. At least one struck Bat Yam near Tel Aviv, eliminating 6 civilians and injuring dozens. Israeli media displayed devastating footage of apartment structures reduced to rubble, and here's what keeps Israeli military strategists awake at night. Iran has missiles Israel hasn't even observed yet in combat. The Khurramshahr 4, also called the Khaybar-class missile, is Iran's heaviest and fastest ballistic missile. It has a 2,000 kilometers distance, carries a 1,500 kilo warhead, and achieves speeds approaching Mach 14. That's so fast it becomes plasma during atmospheric re-entry. Inbar exposed in an interview with the Jerusalem Post. There is one missile Iran has not yet employed against Israel, the Khurramshahr based on North Korea's Hwasong-10. It's Iran's heaviest and fastest missile. Although currently within the interception envelope of Israel's enhanced air defense network, a single successful breach could inflict catastrophic harm. A single successful breach. One missile, one strike, catastrophic harm. That's the nightmare situation driving Israeli policy right now, not Iran's nuclear initiative, which might generate a bomb years from now. The ballistic missile arsenal that can eliminate Israeli cities today. This is why Israeli representatives are now informing Trump to completely transform the focus of negotiations with Iran. Disregard the nuclear initiative for now. Focus exclusively on ballistic missiles. According to Israel Hayom newspaper released just 13 hours earlier, Israeli defense representatives conveyed this stance to the Trump administration in the strongest possible terms. Any future arrangement must include limitations on Iran's manufacturing and acquisition of ballistic missiles. A U.S.-Iran arrangement that does not address ballistic missiles would compel Israel to act against the danger even without U.S. support. That's a direct ultimatum to Trump. Either make Iran's missile initiative the red line in negotiations, or Israel will strike Iranian missile installations unilaterally, even if that activates regional war and drags America into conflict Trump doesn't desire. Trump apparently obtained the communication. According to multiple Israeli media accounts, Trump has now presented Iran a stunning agreement. Acknowledge to significant restrictions on your ballistic missile initiative's distance and manufacturing capacity, and will be flexible on nuclear enrichment restrictions and regional proxy assistance. This represents a complete reversal of American negotiating emphasis. For decades, U.S. policy treated Iran's nuclear initiative as the existential danger. Missiles were secondary, regional proxies were tertiary. The nuclear file dominated everything. But Israel has persuaded Trump that the timeline danger is inverted. Iran might construct a nuclear weapon in months or years, but Iran can eliminate Israeli cities with conventional ballistic missiles today. And unlike nuclear weapons, which would activate global condemnation and possible retaliation in kind, Iran can launch conventional missiles repeatedly without crossing the nuclear threshold. The strategic assessment is brutal but logical. Nuclear weapons are deterred by mutually assured elimination. No rational participant launches nukes understanding they'll be annihilated in response. But conventional ballistic missiles, Iran can launch hundreds without activating nuclear retaliation. Israel can't react to every missile barrage with nuclear weapons. The escalation dynamics don't sustain it. So Iran gets strategic worth from their missile arsenal that exceeds the worth of nuclear weapons in many situations. They can pound Israeli cities, military installations, and infrastructure into rubble, employing conventional explosives, inflicting economic devastation and psychological trauma without providing Israel or America justification for nuclear reaction. Israeli representatives clarified this logic to Trump, employing the June war as evidence. Iran launched 500-plus ballistic missiles in 9 days. Some carried 1-ton warheads. The explosions were enormous. Structures collapsed. Military installations were damaged. Civilians perished. And the world's reaction was diplomatic influence for ceasefire discussions. Imagine if Iran had employed a tactical nuclear weapon instead, even a small one. The international reaction would have been apocalyptic. Russia and China would have condemned it. the UN Security Council would have authorized military intervention, and Israel would have had blank check permission to respond with overwhelming force, possibly including nuclear weapons. So conventional missiles supply Iran with usable military power that nuclear weapons don't. They can actually employ these missiles in conflict without activating the end of the world. That makes them more hazardous in practical terms than nuclear weapons that exist primarily as deterrents. Israeli military intelligence supplied Trump with even more disturbing information. During the June 12th Day war, Israel and the United States expended massive quantities of interceptor missiles protecting against Iranian assaults. The U.S. military launched approximately 150 THAAD interceptors, and 80 SM-3 ship launched interceptors that represented roughly 25% of America's total interceptor stockpile. And here's the frightening component. The United States manufactures fewer than 20 THAAD interceptors per year. Lockheed Martin's manufacturing capacity is severely limited. Pentagon procurement strategies for 2026 call for purchasing only 37 THAAD interceptors total. That's a fraction of what was expended in 12 days of combat. Do the mathematics. America employed 150 interceptors in 12 days. America manufactures 20 interceptors per year. It would take 7.5 years to replace the interceptors employed in less than 2 weeks of combat. And that assumes no other conflicts demand THAAD deployments anywhere else in the world. Iran, meanwhile, can manufacture 300 ballistic missiles per month, according to Israeli intelligence calculations. Even if that quantity is inflated, and the real figure is half that, 150 per month, Iran still manufactures more offensive missiles in 1 month than America manufactures defensive interceptors in 7 years. The asymmetry is staggering, and it gets worse when you factor in expense. Each THAAD interceptor costs approximately $15 million. Each Iranian Khaybar-Shekan missile costs roughly $2 million to manufacture domestically. Iran can construct 7 missiles for the expense of 1 American interceptor. This is the economic combat assessment that has Israeli defense representatives terrified. In any sustained missile exchange, Iran can simply overwhelm Israeli and American defenses through volume, launch enough missiles, and eventually interceptors run out, then the remaining missiles hit their objectives unopposed. Ariel, Associate Director of Foreign Policy at the Jewish Institute for National Security Affairs, summarized the emergency bluntly. Both Israel and the U.S. employed an immense amount of their interceptor stockpiles during the June war. It's a very real priority whether we could sustain the same threshold of defense in another round. The reply clearly is no. One more war like June's 12-day conflict would completely deplete Israel and America's strategic interceptor reserves. And Iran comprehends it. So here's where this leaves Trump's negotiating approach, and why Israel is requesting he prioritize missiles over nukes. Trump has 2 impossible problems. First, Iran absolutely refuses to negotiate on ballistic missiles. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated explicitly that Iran's defensive capabilities and missiles will never be the subject of any negotiation. Never. That's Iran's hard red line. Second, Israel states they'll strike Iranian missile installations unilaterally if Trump authorizes any arrangement that doesn't restrict missiles. That means Trump confronts a selection: authorize a nuclear-only agreement and observe Israel activate regional war, or depart from negotiations entirely and observe Iran's sprint toward nuclear capability. Neither choice accomplishes Trump's stated objectives. He desires to halt Iran's nuclear initiative and prevent regional war. But those goals are now mutually exclusive because Israel has determined that missiles pose a more immediate danger than nukes. And Israel has valid reasons for that stance. Nuclear weapons take months or years to create and weaponize. Ballistic missiles are already positioned and operational. Israel confronts existential missile danger today. The nuclear danger is hypothetical and future dated. Israeli security doctrine is governed by a principle borrowed from the Talmud. If someone approaches to eliminate you, rise up and eliminate him first. Applied to Iran's missile initiative, that doctrine mandates preemptive strikes against capabilities that threaten Israel's continuation. And 2,000 ballistic missiles, growing by 300 per month, definitely threaten Israel's continuation. Israel Hayom spelled out the logic in today's editorial. After October 7th, Israel's security outlook transformed. A regime intent on eliminating the state of Israel and possessing the means to do so may employ them in a surprise assault. Israel, therefore, will act to remove those means. That's not bluster. That's announced policy. If Trump authorizes an agreement leaving Iran's missiles intact, Israel will strike. And when Israel strikes, Iran responds against both Israeli and American objectives because Tehran assumes Washington approved the operation regardless of whether Trump actually did. Then the USS Abraham Lincoln gets hit. American installations throughout the Middle East come under assault. Oil prices surge, global recession follows, and Trump owns the catastrophe politically, even though he was attempting to avoid it through diplomacy. This is the trap Trump confronts. Israeli influence compels him to request missile limitations Iran won't acknowledge. Iranian refusal justifies Israeli strikes. Trump doesn't desire. Israeli strikes activate Iranian retaliation that drags America into war anyway. Diplomacy collapses, war occurs, Trump gets blamed, and there's no military answer either. Israeli representatives informed Trump that removing Iran's missile capabilities would demand commando penetrations on underground manufacturing installations. That means American and Israeli special forces breaching deep into Iranian territory, battling their way into hardened mountain bunkers, eliminating industrial equipment, and battling their way back out. It's possible technically, but the casualties would be enormous, and even if the penetration succeeded, Iran would just reconstruct. China is already supplying the specialized equipment Iran requires: planetary mixers for solid fuel manufacturing, guidance components, propellant precursors. As long as China supports Iran's missile initiative, eliminating manufacturing installations is a temporary setback at best. Israeli representatives acknowledge this. They informed Trump the only way to permanently remove Iran's missile danger is regime transformation in Tehran. Install a government that voluntarily dismantles the missile initiative. But Trump just observed popular uprisings collapse to overthrow Iran's government despite 6,000 to 20,000 protesters being eliminated. The Islamic Republic survived its worst internal emergency in decades by massacring demonstrators. They're not going to collapse to covert American operations or economic sanctions, so Trump has no excellent choices. Military strikes won't function, covert intervention won't function, sanctions won't function, negotiations won't function because Iran refuses to examine missiles. And Israel is requesting results anyway. Fix this or we'll fix it. Ourselves is the communication Netanyahu is transmitting through military channels. We don't care if you can't address the problem. It's your problem now. Discover a solution or we'll generate a war you'll have to engage. That's where this emergency stands as Friday's discussions and Muscat approach. Trump requires Iran to negotiate on missiles. Iran refuses. Israel threatens unilateral intervention. Trump confronts political catastrophe regardless of which choice he selects. The smart play would be departing, except that no agreement is possible. Sustain sanctions, continue containment, don't activate war. But Trump constructed his political brand on making agreements. Departing from negotiations empty-handed appears like breakdown, and Trump hates appearing like he collapsed. So he'll probably keep attempting, keep influencing Iran, keep presenting variations of the same agreement, keep hoping Iran yields before Israel strikes. But Iran isn't yielding. They have 2,000 missiles pointed at Israeli cities. They're manufacturing 300 more per month. And they comprehend that as long as their arsenal expands, Israel's margin for error diminishes. Duration favors Iran in this confrontation. Every month without war, Iran adds 300 missiles to their arsenal. Every month, Israel's defenses get more overwhelmed by the danger volume. Every month, American interceptor stockpiles remain depleted, while Iranian manufacturing continues, so Iran can afford to be patient, refuse negotiations on missiles, wait for Trump to either acknowledge a nuclear-only agreement or depart entirely, then continue constructing their missile force until Israel concludes military strikes won't function anymore because the objectives are too numerous and too dispersed. That's the endgame Iran is performing for, and right now they're winning. The inquiry is whether Trump recognizes he's being outmaneuvered or whether his requirement for an agreement, any agreement, leads him to authorize something that activates the exact regional war he's attempting to prevent. Based on how he's handled this emergency so far, the odds don't appear excellent. Israel has determined missiles are the existential danger. Iran has determined missiles are non-negotiable, and Trump is trapped between two stances that cannot be reconciled. Friday's discussions won't transform that, but they might expose how long Trump continues pursuing an impossible objective before reality compels him to select between bad choices. And when he finally selects, the ramifications will reshape the entire Middle East, one way or another. I am Dav from 3 Daily News.